The collapse from greatness to degeneracy. You're walking through downtown Manhattan. Just 5 years ago, this neighborhood was thriving, local businesses flourishing, neighbors helping neighbors, kids playing in the parks. Today, boarded up shops, people avoiding eye contact, and sirens every few minutes. The community spirit has vanished. What happened? This is degeneracy in action, not just urban decay, but moral decay. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The same collapse that happens to societies happens to individuals. Maybe it's already happening to you. The ancient Stoics had a word for people who let themselves morally deteriorate. Degenerates. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another judgmental rant, hear me out. The Stoics weren't interested in shaming people. They were interested in diagnosing the specific behaviors that lead to a wasted, unhappy life. They created an entire system based on reason, not religion or personal opinion, to identify what makes someone degenerate. According to Stoic philosophy, a degenerate is someone who consistently chooses vice over virtue, who lives against their nature, and who fights against the rational order of the universe. It's not about being perfect, it's about the direction you're heading. Are you moving toward wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation? Or are you sliding toward foolishness, injustice, cowardice, and excess? The Stoics believed the universe operates on rational principles, what they called the logos or divine reason. Humans, uniquely gifted with rational minds, can either align with this cosmic order or fight against it. When we fight it, we degenerate. When we align with it, we flourish. It's that simple and that difficult. Think about your own life right now. Are you constantly frustrated that things don't go your way? Do you break promises without a second thought? Have you normalized laziness? Are you enslaved to your appetites? Do you blame everyone but yourself for your problems? These aren't just bad habits. They're signs of degeneration. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire at its height, watched his own society begin its slow collapse. In his private journal, later published as Meditations, he documented the signs of moral decay he saw around him and fought against in himself. Seneca, advisor to emperors, wrote extensively about the difference between those who give themselves over to fate wisely and those who rail against the universe like spoiled children. Epictetus, who went from slave to renowned teacher, showed his students how seemingly small vices, a broken promise here, an excuse there compound into a degenerate character. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 specific signs that you're living as a degenerate according to Stoic philosophy. These aren't arbitrary moral judgments. They're based on 2,000 years of philosophical observation about what makes humans flourish or fail. Each sign represents a choice to live below your potential, to embrace vice instead of virtue, to fight against nature instead of flowing with it. Ready to face some uncomfortable truths about yourself? Let's dive into the first sign. 1. You can't accept when life doesn't go your way. Sarah had it all planned out. The promotion was practically guaranteed. Her boss had hinted at it for months. She'd already started looking at condos in Lincoln Park, mentally decorating her new corner office. Then Monday morning came. The promotion went to Derek from accounting. Derek. She spent the next 3 weeks in a rage spiral, sending bitter texts to friends, snapping at coworkers, lying awake at night rehearsing what she should have said. She even started updating her resume, determined to show them. But here's what Sarah couldn't see. She was fighting a battle that was already over, wasting her energy on something that was never in her control to begin with. This is what Seneca called fighting against the universal will, that cosmic order that governs everything from the movement of planets to who gets promoted at your company. When you can't accept that life doesn't go your way, you're essentially declaring war on reality itself. And guess who loses that war? Every single time. The Stoics had a perfect metaphor for this. It's like building elaborate sandcastles on the beach, then getting furious when the tide comes in. You can shake your fist at the ocean. You can petition the moon to change its gravitational pull. You can even try to build a wall against the waves. But the tide will do what the tide does. Your anger changes nothing except your own peace of mind. It is to this law that our souls must adjust themselves. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "This they should follow, this they should obey. Whatever happens, assume that it was bound to happen, and do not be willing to rail at nature. That which you cannot reform, it is best to endure, and to attend uncomplainingly upon the God under whose guidance everything progresses. For it is a bad soldier who grumbles when following his commander." Think about how much energy you waste fighting reality. Your flight gets canceled, and you spend hours arguing with airline staff who can't control the weather. Your relationship ends, and you spend months trying to convince someone to love you again. The stock market crashes right after you invest, and you rage against the system. But what if, and stick with me here, what if all that energy you're using to fight could be redirected toward what you can actually control? Your response. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As Emperor of Rome, you'd think he could control everything. Yet his meditations are filled with reminders to himself about accepting what he couldn't change. "Confine yourself to the present," he wrote. "The universe is transformation. Our life is what our thoughts make it." Even with all his power, he knew that fighting fate was the mark of a fool. Here's where it gets interesting from a Stoic perspective. When you can't accept reality, you're not just being impractical, you're being fundamentally irrational. The universe operates according to cause and effect, according to principles that don't care about your preferences. To expect it to bend to your will is like expecting math to work differently because you don't like the answer. 2 + 2 = 4, whether you accept it or not. But this isn't about passive resignation. The Stoics weren't saying, just give up and let life happen to you. They were masters of action within their sphere of control. Take Cato the Younger, who fought tirelessly against what he saw as the corruption of the Roman Republic. When he ultimately lost and Caesar took power, did Cato waste time raging against fate? No. He accepted the outcome while maintaining his principles, choosing death over living under what he considered tyranny. Extreme? Yes. But it illustrates the Stoic principle. Fight hard for what you can influence, then accept the outcome with dignity. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show that people who can't accept negative outcomes experience higher rates of anxiety, depression, and chronic stress. They're literally making themselves sick fighting battles in their own minds. Meanwhile, those who practice acceptance, not approval, but acceptance, show better mental health outcomes, stronger relationships, and greater life satisfaction. So, how do you know if you're guilty of this form of degeneracy? Ask yourself, when was the last time something didn't go your way, and you simply said, okay, what's next? Without the drama, without the mental litigation, without the exhausting resistance? If you can't remember, you might be more of a degenerate than you think. The antidote is what Epictetus called the discipline of desire, wanting only what is up to you and accepting everything else as it comes. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It means choosing your battles wisely and recognizing that most of what happens to you was never your battle to begin with. You have power over your mind, not outside events, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you stop fighting fate and start working with reality as it is, not as you wish it were, you transform from a degenerate who exhausts himself in futile resistance into a sage who flows with the cosmic order while maintaining complete autonomy over what matters: your character, your choices, your responses. 2. You break trust like it means nothing. The email was supposed to be confidential. Jason had actually promised, to keep quiet about the layoffs coming to the Los Angeles marketing firm. But 3 drinks into happy hour at that trendy downtown bar, he couldn't resist. "You didn't hear this from me," he whispered to his colleague Amanda. "But I'd start updating that LinkedIn profile if I were you." By Monday morning, half the office knew. Panic spread. Productivity tanked. 2 top performers quit preemptively. The CEO traced the leak back to Jason. Not only did he lose his job, but his reputation in LA's tight-knit marketing community was destroyed. All for what? A moment of feeling important, of being the guy with insider information. This is what Epictetus encountered when a scholar visited his lecture in ancient Nicopolis and casually mentioned he'd cheated on his wife. The philosopher's response was brutal. He didn't talk about forgiveness or understanding. Instead, he painted a picture of complete social destruction. "Who is going to trust you?" Epictetus demanded. "Are you not willing, therefore, that you too should be cast forth upon some dunghill as a useless vessel, as a piece of dung?" Harsh? Absolutely. But Epictetus understood something we've forgotten in our age of, "It's complicated," and "everyone makes mistakes." Trust isn't just nice to have. It's the invisible infrastructure that makes civilization possible. When you break trust like it means nothing, you're not just hurting individuals. You're actively destroying the social fabric that allows humans to cooperate, build, and thrive. Think about it. Every single day, you engage in thousands of trust-based interactions. You trust that the car next to you won't suddenly swerve into your lane. You trust that your employer will pay you. You trust that the food you buy isn't poisoned. You trust that your spouse isn't secretly planning to empty the bank account and disappear. Remove trust, and society doesn't just struggle, it collapses entirely. The Stoics understood this at a fundamental level. Justice, one of their 4 cardinal virtues, wasn't some abstract concept. It included piety, honesty, equity, and fair dealing. When you violate any of these, you become what Epictetus called a wasp, a creature that everyone avoids, that contributes nothing but pain and trouble. "You have such a sting," he told the adulterer, "that you involve in trouble and pain whomever you strike. What do you want us to do with you? There is no place where you can be put." Modern research confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. Studies show that high-trust societies have stronger economies, better health outcomes, lower crime rates, and greater happiness. Low-trust societies? They're characterized by corruption, poverty, and violence. The same applies to individuals. People with high trust ratings earn more money, have better relationships, and report greater life satisfaction. Those known as untrustworthy, They're stuck in a downward spiral of broken relationships and missed opportunities. But here's where it gets personal. Every time you break trust, whether it's cheating on your partner, lying to your boss, sharing secrets, or breaking promises, you're not just harming others. You're literally rewiring your brain to normalize betrayal. Neuroscience shows that repeated behaviors create neural pathways. Break trust often enough and it becomes your default mode. You become the person who can't be counted on, who always has an excuse, who people instinctively protect themselves against. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." When you destroy trust, you're poisoning the hive. And eventually, that poison comes back to you. Jason from our opening story, 6 months later, he's still unemployed. Not because he lacks skills, but because in LA's marketing world, everyone knows he's the guy who can't keep his mouth shut. His momentary power trip cost him everything. The marriage context that Epictetus addressed is particularly revealing. In Roman society, marriage was a sacred institution, not just romantically, but socially and economically. Adultery didn't just break hearts. It broke contracts, destroyed alliances, and could ruin entire families' reputations. Today, we might be more casual about relationships, but the principle remains. When you violate the deepest trusts, you reveal yourself as someone who puts personal pleasure above social bonds. Seneca put it bluntly, "Every man can tell how many goats or sheep he possesses, but not how many friends. For men value their property, but think little of their friends." When you break trust, you're essentially announcing that you value people less than things, that relationships are disposable, that your word means nothing. So, how do you know if you're this type of degenerate? Here are the signs. You share information told in confidence. You make promises you don't intend to keep. You lie when the truth is inconvenient. You cheat in small ways, telling yourself it doesn't matter. You justify betrayals with "everyone does it," or "they do the same to me." You feel no genuine remorse when caught, only frustration at the consequences. The path back from this degeneracy isn't complicated, but it's hard. Start by keeping one small promise, then another, then another. Build your reputation for reliability brick by brick. As Epictetus taught, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a figure. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But the alternative, living as a social wasp, avoided and despised, is no life at all. Choose wisely. 3. You waste your life staying in bed. The alarm goes off at 7 a.m. in Mike's Seattle apartment. He hits snooze, then again, and again. By 10:30, he's finally dragging himself out of bed, already behind on his remote work tasks. "I'll catch up later," he tells himself, the same lie he's been repeating for months. His muscles are getting soft, his mind foggy, his career stagnant. His girlfriend left 3 weeks ago, tired of dating someone who treats life like an endless Saturday morning. But Mike just ordered blackout curtains. If he's going to waste his life, at least he'll be comfortable doing it. This scene would have disgusted Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, who started each day before dawn. In his private journal, he recorded an internal dialogue that millions still read today, a conversation with himself about the temptation to stay in bed. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being." What do I have to complain about if I'm going to do what I was born for or the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? The part of him that wanted comfort responded, but it's nicer here. Then came the philosophical smackdown. So you were born to feel nice? Instead of doing things and experiencing them? Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can? And you're not willing to do your job as a human being? Why are you running to do what your nature demands? But surely we need rest, right? Marcus anticipated this objection, agreed. But nature set a limit on that as it did on eating and drinking. And you're over the limit. You've had more than enough of that, but not for working. There, you're still below your quota. You don't love yourself enough. Or you'd love your nature too and what it demands of you. People who love what they do wear themselves down doing it. They even forget to wash or eat. This isn't about toxic productivity or hustle culture. The Stoics valued rest and recuperation. What they despised was the degenerate who makes comfort their highest value, who treats their bed like a fortress against life's demands. In Stoic terms, excessive laziness is a form of cowardice, the vice that opposes the virtue of courage. Think about what you're actually doing when you waste hours in bed. You're not just resting, you're hiding. From what? From the effort required to live a meaningful life. From the discipline needed to maintain your body and mind. From the contributions you could be making to society. From the person you could become if you actually tried. Modern science backs up what Marcus Aurelius intuited. Oversleeping is linked to depression, cognitive decline, increased mortality risk, and a host of physical ailments. Your muscles atrophy, your metabolism slows, your mood darkens. You're literally decaying in real time. Meanwhile, studies show that people who maintain consistent wake times report higher life satisfaction, better health outcomes, and greater success in their careers and relationships. But the physical consequences pale compared to the philosophical ones. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound." When you spend excessive time in bed, you're not engaging with the profound. You're not developing wisdom, building relationships, creating value, or growing as a person. You're existing in a state of voluntary unconsciousness. The Stoics believed humans are naturally industrious creatures. We have muscles meant for movement, brains designed for problem solving, and hands made for creating. To waste these gifts in excessive slumber is to live against our nature. It's like having a Ferrari and keeping it under a tarp in the garage. Sure, it's safe and comfortable there, but that's not what it was built for. Epictetus taught that we become what we repeatedly do. No one becomes an expert pilot by accident, he said, but by practicing, by showing up even when they don't feel like it. Every morning you choose comfort over purpose, you're practicing degeneracy. You're training yourself to be weak, undisciplined, and irrelevant. Consider the compound effect. Mike from our opening loses maybe 3 hours each day to excessive bed rest. That's 21 hours per week, 84 hours per month, 1,008 hours per year. That's equivalent to 25 work weeks, half a year, spent doing absolutely nothing. In 5 years, he's wasted 2.5 years of potential growth, creation, and contribution. No wonder his life feels empty. The tragedy is that comfort becomes uncomfortable. The more you indulge in laziness, the harder normal activities become. Getting up feels impossible. Work seems overwhelming. Exercise appears torturous. You've trained your body and mind to expect ease, so everything else feels like suffering. You've made yourself weak in the most fundamental way. The willing are led by fate, the reluctant are dragged, goes the Stoic saying. When you can't get out of bed, you're being dragged through life instead of actively living it. You're not choosing your path, you're just avoiding discomfort until death finally provides the ultimate rest. The solution isn't complicated. Set one alarm. When it goes off, count down from 5 and get up. No negotiation, no excuses, no just 5 more minutes. As Marcus told himself, stop talking about what a good person is like and just be one. Your bed will always be there tonight. But this day, this opportunity to live according to your nature, to contribute something meaningful, this won't come again. 4. You're addicted to cheap pleasures. Rachel sits in her Miami apartment, thumbs scrolling endlessly through Instagram. She's been here for 3 hours, jumping between social media, online shopping, and food delivery apps. The dopamine hits come fast, a like here, a purchase there, another order of overpriced sushi. Her credit cards are maxed. Her apartment is cluttered with unopened packages, and she can't remember the last time she felt genuinely satisfied. She's what Seneca would have called sickly pale of lust. Not just physically drained, but spiritually emptied by the constant chase for the next hit of pleasure. How many are pale from constant pleasures? Seneca observed in his essay on the shortness of life. He wasn't talking about ordinary enjoyment or healthy pleasures. He was describing the degenerate state of those who become slaves to their appetites, who organize their entire existence around the next sensory experience, who mistake stimulation for living. The Stoics placed these pleasure addicts below even those consumed by anger or ambition. At least the angry person feels something real. At least the ambitious person strives for something beyond themselves. But the pleasure addict? They're trapped in an endless loop of desire and temporary satisfaction, like a hamster on a wheel going nowhere fast. Among the worst, Seneca wrote, I count also those who have time for nothing but wine and lust, for none have more shameful engrossments. Think about how this addiction manifests in modern life. It's not just about obvious vices like drugs or alcohol. It's the person who can't eat a meal without scrolling through their phone. The one who needs background TV noise to fall asleep. The individual who jumps from relationship to relationship, always chasing that new person high. The consumer who fills emotional voids with Amazon packages. The food addict who eats not from hunger but from boredom. Each hit of pleasure demands a bigger dose next time. Marcus Aurelius understood this trap intimately. As emperor, he had access to every pleasure imaginable. The finest foods, the most beautiful companions, the best entertainment. Yet his meditations repeatedly warn against becoming enslaved by these things. How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself, he wrote. Translation: stop seeking external pleasures and validation. Focus on what actually matters. The neuroscience is damning. Every time you chase these cheap pleasures, you're literally rewiring your brain's reward system. Dopamine receptors become desensitized, requiring more stimulation for the same effect. What excited you last month feels boring now. What satisfied you last year seems pathetic. You're on a treadmill that only speeds up, never letting you actually arrive anywhere. Epictetus put it bluntly, no one is free who is a slave to the body. When your happiness depends on external pleasures, you've handed over your freedom to forces beyond your control. That restaurant might be closed. That person might reject you. That drug might run out. That social media platform might crash. And then what? You're left with nothing but craving and disappointment. The modern world has weaponized this weakness. Entire industries exist to exploit your pleasure-seeking tendencies. Apps are designed to be addictive. Foods are engineered to override satiety signals. Entertainment is crafted to keep you binging. Social media algorithms feed you exactly what will keep you scrolling. You're not just fighting your own weaknesses. You're fighting billions of dollars in research designed to keep you hooked. Everything in excess becomes a fault, Seneca warned. But with cheap pleasures, even moderation becomes excess because the baseline keeps shifting. What starts as weekend drinking becomes daily drinking. What begins as casual gaming becomes 12-hour sessions. What opens as mindful eating becomes constant grazing. The pleasure itself corrupts your ability to enjoy it moderately. Consider the opportunity cost. Rachel from our opening spends maybe 5 hours daily on these empty pleasures. That's 35 hours weekly she could spend learning a skill, building relationships, creating something meaningful, or improving her health. Instead, she's generating nothing but credit card debt and dopamine tolerance. She's not living. She's just consuming. The physical manifestation is telling. Seneca's phrase, sickly pale, wasn't metaphorical. Pleasure addicts often look unwell, overweight or underweight, bags under their eyes, skin problems, general malaise. They're simultaneously overstimulated and exhausted, full but malnourished, connected but lonely. They've optimized for feeling good in the moment at the expense of actually being well. The Stoic alternative isn't asceticism. Marcus Aurelius enjoyed good food and wine. Seneca was wealthy and lived comfortably. The difference? They enjoyed pleasures without being enslaved by them. They could take or leave any particular pleasure because their well-being didn't depend on it. As Epictetus taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The path out requires what modern psychology calls dopamine fasting, but what Stoics call temperance or moderation. Start by identifying your particular poison. Is it social media, shopping, food, sex, substances? Then create barriers between you and that cheap pleasure. Delete apps, cut up credit cards, create rules and boundaries. Not forever, just long enough to break the dependency. Many, following no fixed aim, shifting and inconstant and dissatisfied, are plunged by their fickleness into plans that are ever new, Seneca observed. Some have no fixed principle by which to direct their course, but fate takes them unawares while they loll and yawn. When you're addicted to cheap pleasures, you're not directing your life. You're just bouncing from one hit to the next, aging and decaying while accomplishing nothing of value. The question is simple. Do you want to be pale from constant pleasures or vigorous from purposeful living? The choice, as always, is yours. 5. You blame everyone except yourself. The startup was supposed to be the next big thing. Tom had the vision, the connections, and the Austin tech scene credentials. But 18 months later, he's sitting in a coffee shop off South Congress, explaining to anyone who'll listen why his company failed. It was the investors who didn't understand his vision, the co-founder who betrayed him, the market conditions shifted, the competitors who played dirty, the employees who lacked commitment, everyone and everything except the person staring back at him in the mirror. Tom has become a professional victim, a degenerate who'd rather reform the universe than reform himself. This is exactly what Seneca warned against in his letter to Lucilius. Remember that powerful quote from the beginning? Here is your great soul, the man who has given himself over to fate. On the other hand, that man is a weakling and a degenerate who struggles and maligns the order of the universe and would rather reform the gods than reform himself. Tom is literally trying to reform the gods, blaming cosmic forces, market conditions, other people's choices, rather than examining his own role in his failure. The Stoics had a term for this: the discipline of action. It means taking complete responsibility for what's in your control while accepting what isn't. But the blamer inverts this principle. They take responsibility for nothing while trying to control everything. They're psychological contortionists, twisting reality to avoid the simple truth that they are the authors of their own misery. Marcus Aurelius, dealing with plagues, wars, and treacherous subordinates, never fell into this trap. "Confine yourself to the present," he wrote. "When you lose your temper or even feel irritated, that human life is very short. Before long, all of us will be laid out side by side." He understood that blaming others is not just futile, it's a waste of the precious little time we have. Think about the mental gymnastics required to maintain a victim mentality. You have to constantly rewrite history, selectively remember events, ignore contradictory evidence, and create increasingly elaborate explanations for why nothing is your fault. It's exhausting, and while you're busy constructing these alternate realities, actual reality keeps moving forward without you. Epictetus, who had more reason than most to blame others, he was literally born a slave, instead taught radical responsibility. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things, he said. When you blame others, you're admitting that your mental state is entirely dependent on external factors. You're confessing to being a puppet whose strings are pulled by everyone except yourself. The psychology behind chronic blaming is fascinating and pathetic. Researchers call it external locus of control, the belief that your life is determined by forces outside yourself. People with this mindset show higher rates of depression, anxiety, and learned helplessness. They literally train themselves to be powerless. Meanwhile, those with an internal locus of control, the belief that they shape their own destiny, show greater resilience, success, and life satisfaction. But here's the insidious part. Blaming feels good in the moment, protects your ego. It lets you maintain the illusion that you're competent, moral, and wise. It's just that the world is against you. This temporary comfort comes at a permanent cost. Growth. When nothing is your fault, nothing is in your power to fix. You've traded agency for comfort, potential for excuses. Seneca observed this in the Roman elite of his time. Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound. The new and superficial includes fresh excuses, new people to blame, and novel explanations for your failures. The old and profound truth: you are responsible for your choices and their consequences. Consider Tom's startup failure more closely. Yes, market conditions changed, they always do. Yes, people let him down, they always will. But what about his decisions? Did he adapt to market feedback or stubbornly stick to his original vision? Did he hire carefully or quickly? Did he manage cash flow responsibly or spend recklessly? Did he build strong relationships or burn bridges? These questions matter, but they're precisely the ones blamers never ask. The Stoics offer a simple test. Before blaming anyone or anything, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Not in a self-flagellating way, but with genuine curiosity. Maybe you couldn't have prevented the outcome, but you could have responded better. Maybe you couldn't control others' actions, but you could have chosen better people. Maybe you couldn't predict the future, but you could have prepared for multiple scenarios. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. The blamer inverts this, believing they have power over outside events but not their own mind. They'll spend hours trying to change others' opinions, relitigate the past, or control the uncontrollable, while their own thoughts and actions go unexamined. The path forward requires what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, wanting only what is up to you. Your effort, your choices, your responses, your growth. Everything else? That's just the stage on which you perform. Sometimes the stage is well lit and stable. Sometimes it's dark and shaking. The quality of your performance is still up to you. Stop trying to reform the gods. Stop blaming the market, your ex, your parents, and your circumstances. Start reforming yourself. As Epictetus taught, no one can hurt you without your permission. When you truly understand this, you'll stop wasting energy on blame and start investing it in growth. That's the difference between a degenerate who dies bitter and a sage who dies fulfilled. 6. You live for others' approval. Jessica checks her phone for the 100th time today. The Instagram post from her Los Angeles brunch has only 47 likes. Her stomach drops. She deletes it, refilters the photo, crafts a wittier caption, and reposts. Now she waits, refreshing obsessively. Her entire mood hinges on those little hearts from people she barely knows. At dinner, she orders the most photogenic meal, not the one she actually wants. Her conversation revolves around how others perceive her latest career move. She's not living her life. She's performing it for an audience that isn't even paying attention. This would have baffled the ancient Stoics. Here's someone with freedom, health, and resources, yet she's enslaved herself to the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself, to make it just and holy." He understood that seeking approval is like building your house on quicksand. The foundation shifts with every person's mood. The Stoics believed in living according to nature, your nature, not the nature others imagine for you. When you live for approval, you're not even living as yourself. You're living as a constantly shifting projection of what you think others want to see. It's exhausting, inauthentic, and ultimately impossible. As Epictetus pointed out, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." Think about the mathematics of approval seeking. Los Angeles alone has 4 million people. Even if Jessica somehow became the most beloved person in the city, that leaves billions who don't know or care she exists. And among those who do know her, opinions vary wildly. What charms one person repels another. What seems successful to one appears desperate to another. Trying to please everyone is like trying to make water flow uphill, physically impossible and mentally exhausting. Seneca saw this clearly among Rome's elite. It is equally faulty to trust everyone and to trust no one, he wrote. But the approval seeker does something even more foolish. They trust everyone's opinion except their own. They outsource their self-worth to people who are probably too busy worrying about their own image to give yours much thought. The modern world has weaponized this weakness. Social media platforms literally profit from your need for validation. They've gamified approval with likes, shares, and comments. They've made rejection visible and quantifiable. Every post becomes a referendum on your worth. Every silence feels like judgment. You're not just seeking approval anymore, you're addicted to it, with tech companies as your dealers. But here's what's truly degenerate about living for approval. It makes you manipulative and inauthentic. You're constantly calculating, performing, and adjusting your personality to match what you think others want. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You express opinions you don't hold. You pursue careers that look good rather than feel right. You date people who improve your image rather than your life. You've become a human chameleon, changing colors so often you forget what you actually look like. Marcus Aurelius offered a different path. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. This isn't about arrogance or ignoring feedback. It's about recognizing that you're the only one who lives inside your skin, who knows your full story, who will be there at your deathbed. Everyone else is a visitor in your life. Why let visitors redecorate your entire house? The Stoics distinguished between reputation, what others think, and character, what you are. Reputation is beyond your control. People will think what they think based on incomplete information, their own biases and factors having nothing to do with you. Character is entirely within your control, your choices, your values, your actions when no one's watching. The approval seeker obsesses over reputation while neglecting character. They polish the outside while the inside rots. Consider the opportunity cost. Jessica spends hours curating her online image, crafting the perfect responses, and analyzing others' reactions. That's time not spent developing actual skills, building genuine relationships, or pursuing meaningful goals. She's so busy seeming impressive that she never becomes impressive. She's so focused on appearing happy that she never pursues actual happiness. Epictetus taught, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Similarly, freedom consists not in having everyone's approval, but in needing no one's approval. When you need others to validate your choices, you're not free. You're a slave with invisible chains, dancing to music only you can hear. The irony is that people respect authenticity more than performance. The very approval you seek by conforming becomes more likely when you stop seeking it. As Seneca noted, every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound. The new and superficial includes the latest trends, opinions, and social pressures. The old and profound includes your core values, your authentic self, and your actual desires. So, how do you break free? Start small. Make one decision today based solely on what you think is right, without considering others' opinions. Post something genuine without checking the likes. Express an unpopular opinion you actually hold. Say no to an invitation you accepted only for appearances. Each act of authenticity weakens approval's grip on you. Remember, you're going to die. Marcus Aurelius used this as motivation. Before long, all of us will be laid out side by side. In that moment, whose approval will matter? The strangers who liked your photos? The acquaintances who praised your choices? Or will you wish you'd lived according to your own values, your own nature, your own definition of a life well lived? 7. You think rules don't apply to you. David runs a successful tech company in San Francisco's financial district. He's brilliant, charismatic, and completely convinced that ordinary rules are for ordinary people. He cuts corners on safety protocols because innovation requires risk. He misleads investors because everyone embellishes a little. He treats employees as disposable because that's how you build unicorns. When his top engineer quits after working to exhaustion, David shrugs. When the SEC starts investigating his financial statements, he lawyers up. He genuinely believes that success places him above the moral laws that govern lesser mortals. He's about to learn what the Stoics knew. The universe doesn't care about your net worth. This is the ultimate form of degeneracy, the belief that you're exempt from the rational principles that govern everything else. The Stoics called this hubris, and they saw it as not just foolish but cosmically offensive. Why? Because they believe the universe operates according to logos, a rational, organizing principle that applies to everything from the movement of planets to human behavior. To think you're above these laws is like thinking gravity doesn't apply to you because you're special. Marcus Aurelius, who had more power than David could dream of, wrote, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being." In other words, we're all part of the same system, governed by the same rules. The emperor and the slave, the billionaire and the beggar, all subject to the same cosmic order. But the rules don't apply to me. Degenerate thinks they've transcended this order. They've confused temporary success with permanent exemption. They mistake getting away with something for being allowed to do it. They interpret silence as approval, luck as skill, and delayed consequences as no consequences. It's a child's view of morality. If I didn't get caught, it wasn't wrong. Epictetus demolished this thinking with a simple observation. No one is free who is not master of himself. The person who thinks rules don't apply to them isn't demonstrating freedom. They're revealing slavery. Slavery to ego, to impulse, to the delusion that they're somehow fundamentally different from every other human who's ever lived. They're not above the law, they're beneath reason. The Stoics distinguished between human laws, which can be evaded, and natural laws, which cannot. You might bribe your way out of a speeding ticket, but you can't bribe physics if you crash. You might lie your way to a promotion, but you can't lie your way out of the psychological consequences of being a liar. You might exploit others for profit, but you can't exploit your way to genuine relationships or inner peace. Seneca, who witnessed the spectacular falls of many who thought themselves untouchable, wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound. The new includes novel justifications for why you're special, why the rules don't apply, and why you deserve an exemption. The old and profound truth, natural law, is inexorable. Cause and effect don't care about your ego. Consider what happens to those who live this way." Elizabeth Holmes thought the rules of medical testing didn't apply to her vision. Bernie Madoff thought the rules of mathematics didn't apply to his returns. Enron executives thought the rules of accounting didn't apply to their innovation. They all discovered what Marcus Aurelius knew. The universe is transformation. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Transform yourself into someone above the rules, and the universe will transform you into a cautionary tale. The modern world enables this delusion. Wealth can insulate you from immediate consequences. Technology can help you evade detection. Complex systems can obscure cause and effect. You can live for years, even decades, believing you've outsmarted the system. But as Seneca observed, every guilty person is his own hangman. The punishment isn't always external. It's the internal corrosion of character, the paranoia of discovery, the emptiness of relationships built on deception. The truly insidious part? This degeneracy is progressive. Start small. You cut a minor corner and nothing bad happens. So you cut a bigger corner, then another. Each successful evasion reinforces your belief in your own exemption. You're like a gambler on a winning streak, convinced you've figured out how to beat the house. But the house always wins because the house is reality itself. Epictetus taught, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Similarly, true power consists not in being above the rules, but in aligning yourself with them so perfectly that they work in your favor. The sage doesn't break natural laws. They understand and flow with them. They don't fight gravity. They use it. They don't violate trust. They build it. They don't exploit others. They create mutual benefit. The Stoics believed in a concept called sympathia, the mutual connection of all things. When you act as if rules don't apply to you, you're not just breaking laws, you're damaging the fabric of interconnection that makes civilization possible. You're the cancer cell that thinks it's winning by growing without limit, not realizing it's killing the very body it depends on for survival. So, how do you know if you're this type of degenerate? You rationalize unethical behavior as necessary for success. You see integrity as a luxury you can't afford. You view rules as suggestions and ethics as obstacles. You believe your intelligence, success, or circumstances grant you special exemption. You see the consequences that happen to others and think, "That won't happen to me." The cure is simple but difficult: voluntary compliance with the same rules you expect others to follow. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." If you wouldn't want everyone to act as you do, then you shouldn't act that way either. The universe doesn't offer special exemptions. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you can stop fighting reality and start working with it. The choice between virtue and degeneracy. We started with a thriving neighborhood that collapsed into chaos. But here's the truth that should keep you up at night. That neighborhood is a mirror. It reflects what happens when individuals choose vice over virtue, when we collectively decide that fighting fate, breaking trust, embracing laziness, chasing empty pleasures, blaming others, seeking approval, and ignoring universal principles are acceptable. The degeneration of society begins with the degeneration of individuals. It begins with you. It begins with me. The 7 signs we've explored aren't just philosophical abstractions. They're daily choices. Every morning when your alarm goes off, you choose courage or cowardice. Every time you make a promise, you choose justice or betrayal. Every time life doesn't go your way, you choose wisdom or foolishness. Every time pleasure calls, you choose moderation or excess. These aren't grand, one-time decisions. They're small, repeated choices that compound into character. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. He wasn't the emperor because of his title. He was emperor because he chose every single day to live according to virtue rather than vice. He could have had anything, done anything, justified anything. Instead, he chose discipline, justice, wisdom, and moderation. The Stoics offer us something precious in our age of moral relativism, an objective standard based on reason and nature. You don't have to wonder if you're living well. Ask yourself, am I accepting what I cannot control? Am I trustworthy? Am I fulfilling my potential? Am I free from enslaving pleasures? Am I taking responsibility? Am I authentic? Am I living according to universal principles? The answers tell you everything, but knowing isn't enough. Epictetus warned, "No great thing is created suddenly. Transformation from degenerate to sage doesn't happen overnight. It happens choice by choice, moment by moment, day by day. It's built through small victories. Getting up when you don't feel like it, keeping a promise when it's inconvenient, accepting a setback with grace, choosing meaning over pleasure, taking responsibility instead of making excuses, being authentic despite social pressure, following principles even when you could get away with breaking them. The path is clear. The Stoics have lit the way with 2,000 years of wisdom. The only question is, will you walk it? Will you choose the difficult path of virtue or the easy slide into degeneracy? Will you reform yourself or keep trying to reform the gods? Your answer matters more than you know, because you're not just choosing your own fate, you're contributing to the fate of everyone around you. Every person who chooses virtue makes it easier for others to choose virtue. Every person who chooses vice makes vice seem more acceptable. You're either part of society's rise or its fall. There is no neutral ground. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. If this video resonated with you, if you're ready to choose virtue over vice, then join our community at Stoic Vivu. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we can revive the wisdom of the Stoics for our modern age. Together, we can choose virtue. Together, we can rise.